Hey guys, Real Estate Millennials here. We're very excited. We're filming our very first podcast of our real estate series. My name is Oliver Thornton. I'm here with Brandon Robles here from Kind Home Loans. Today we're here discussing real estate and some of the other topics around it with one of my good friends and partners, Max Albert. So Max, do you want to go into some of the background of how you got into real estate and whatnot?
Max, tell us who you are.
Yeah, sure. I'm a real estate developer here in Los Angeles County. I specialize in Hollywood Hills West, Beverly Hills, West Hollywood. I've sort of focused in on that area because of the advantages for big margins and lower cost to get in compared to some other areas. My background's actually in entertainment. I used to be a creative director, so design, sourcing locations to match a certain sort of visual experience, that all translated into architectural design, interior design, the way that a buyer looks at a house when they walk in for the first time, sort of the inward criticism, to really be strict about that experience for the user, and that's kind of what I've tried to focus on the most.
So you design all your own flips?
I do, yeah. I do either a combination of AutoCAD and SketchUp. Usually SketchUp in the beginning phases, and then once we get into the actual architectural design, we'll do AutoCAD. But recommend that software, SketchUp, for anybody. It's free. You can use it online. You can watch a couple of YouTube tutorials. It'll take 10, 20 minutes to sort of figure out the basics, and then you can go in and basically design homes, furniture, anything that if you're like me and you're not very good at drawing, makes it really easy to kind of come up with concepts and designs that way.
Sure. Well, talk a little bit about how you got involved in real estate. So you said that you were part of the entertainment industry, and you talked about some of the similarities.
Yeah, I had a partner in San Diego that I reached out to sort of at the peak of the entertainment industry stuff I was doing, maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, and he had done 20 or 30 flips in San Diego, and he sort of had this formula, and he asked me to start sourcing deals for him in LA. I was shooting at these really cool locations all the time, and he would always hit me up on Instagram or on the phone and go, "Hey, I saw you at this place, what can I get a property like that for?" And just sort of naturally got me curious about, so much of what I do is sort of finding these places that are desirable and places that look cool, and how can I sort of make more money off that instead of making a couple $1,000 to direct a project. I'm basically going through the same process to find these locations as I would to find a flip. So why not just sort of shift my energy? And within 6 months we had our first deal. And another good way, if you don't have a lot of capital to get involved, if you're willing to put in the hard work and to sort of defer your payment to the end, you can be a sweat equity partner. You can clear 15% of the profit margin, get your feet wet on the first deal. Use that money, throw it into your own deal as more of an equity partner, a cash partner. So there's a couple different ways you can get involved, and just because you don't have cash doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be involved in development. So.
Yeah. Well, talk about the type of developments you're doing. Are we looking at $100,000, $200,000 projects? We're looking at
sure.
projects?
So sort of the sweet spot, at least in LA, that I found, purchase acquisition. These days, to get something that has good bones that you're not going to need to do a ton of structural stuff with, because again, when you get involved in these projects, you'll see, the return of 4 months of your investor's money versus having their money for a year. Sort of the annual interest on that money becomes very expensive. So when you're getting started, always find projects where you can guarantee the return to your investors. It can be 90, maybe 100 days of construction. You can get in and out 6 months, hopefully tops, on your first couple deals, and that'll build up trust with your investors. They'll want to do more deals. They'll say, okay, well, I feel comfortable with you doing the structural stuff. You were upfront with me. We have transparency in our relationship. So that those types of projects that I do, always try to think of my investors and their pressure points whenever they're doing a deal, because if you can pacify their concerns, they're going to go back to you every time, as opposed to a developer who overspends and always asking for more money and changes the deal halfway through. Oh, well, now I want to do this with the plan. investors don't like that. They want stability. They want somebody to go, I'm going to get you your money back. This is going to be a home run. So you kind of have to step up into that position. I tried to do that. I think I'm doing that now. So
yeah, no, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, a lot of things with real estate. I think transparency is such a critical component. Like, you hear the stigma of like, oh, I'm the used real estate car salesman person, and I'm trying to sell you this property for the top dollar, and it doesn't make sense. When you like break down all the numbers of what construction cost may be, like, this is what you would need to do to stage the house, or this is the landscaping thing. Like, it's really good to have that mapped out from an investor standpoint.
Sure,
too.
100%.
Max, and what type of profit margin do you look for your investors?
So this is the funny thing, right? The traditional history of like investments, right? Like if you look at Wall Street or these sort of traditional longer term, what people in finance consider safe bet investments, doing like a Series A investment, an A rating stock that's Apple or something where you're getting 8 to 10% a year. There's guys who are getting promoted at Morgan Stanley and at these financial institutions for literally, if you get your clients 10%, like two years in a row, you really get promoted to like senior VP.
It's crazy.
If I was to only deliver 10%, to me, that would be a failure to my clients. They're looking at returns for between 15 and 25%. I've never returned less than 25% of my investors' cash to them. Out of all the 18, 19 deals that I've done, that I've been a part of, they've always made out with, in some cases, 35, 40% of what their money was. And if you look at that annually, if you're to amortize the interest in an annual rate, it really is like 60% return. If you look at like a 12-month return schedule.
That's a big dog money right there, to say the least.
That's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, and that kind of tied into one of my next questions is like, from an investor standpoint, say if you're someone in your 20s and you're starting to make big dog money now and you're trying to figure out where I should be putting this money. Maybe I shouldn't be buying that table at Warwick and instead putting it into some form of real estate investment.
Nothing against Warwick.
Yeah, I know. Warwick is tight. I have a good time at Warwick whenever I go, especially when I get a table.
Do a deal first. Then
Do a deal first, or beg your mom to use her credit card for your birthday or something like that. But so you kind of went into it a little bit. So like, tell me why real estate is the go-to investment compared to say going into the stock market or some of the other safer investments.
So look, right, there's no investment that's a 100% guarantee, right? There's some risk involved in doing any investment, even a real estate investment. The difference is a real estate investment is a secured investment. So if something happens and a sinkhole appears or the construction budget's $250,000 over what you thought it was going to be or whatever, your investors can still get out of that situation for some dollar amount close to what they put in, if not exactly what they put in, maybe a little bit over. So it's unique in that way where an intellectual property investment, I'm going to invest in a company that makes patents for table saws. If they don't develop a proof of concept during your investment period, you're getting out of that deal with nothing. I mean, you have sand in your hands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have nothing to fall back on. You can't go take that idea and go sell it a half completed idea. So as far as the real estate investments go, you'll always have that some sort of security on that initial investment. So.
Sure. My dad's always told me that you can't live in a stock certificate, but you can always live in a house.
Yes.
So if all goes to shit with a real estate investment, at least you have a
sure.
roof over your head as long as you're making the mortgage payments and not getting foreclosed.
100%.
So when you got into real estate in the early stages, you got involved in these first few projects. Why don't you talk about some of the projects that you really knocked out of the park, and then maybe some that you were like, I could have done a little bit better on this one, or I learned a lot about certain things like construction budgets and things going over budget or whatever those are. Why don't you talk about that
for 4 years?
Yeah, for 4. I'd done some smaller projects before that, but really as a developer, really 4 years. So a couple things. Something to look at when you're looking at these acquisitions on these properties, because the deal starts with the buy. So a lot of times investors get emotional and they have an idea for a property and they have this finished picture in their mind, and they're willing to overpay even if it's detrimental to their relationship with their investors, because this is going to be a portfolio piece that's going to set them apart, or not really taking into consideration the true interest of their investor. And anytime you do that, obviously you risk not making any money on the back end, but you also risk potential lawsuit. You risk not ever being able to do a deal with those people again. And in these real estate transactions, it's all about building these long-term relationships. So you don't want to get an investor that's going to do one and be done. In fact, all my investors that I work with, none of them have just left after the first deal. They always come back, always looking to do another deal. A lot of them have moved on to become their own developers without me because I sort of showed them my formula. And the good thing is about California, there's a lot of inventory, so there's no reason why your friends can't make some money too, and help people out along the way. So
sure. So
talk about some of the ones you recently hit a home run on.
Yeah. So I'll give you two examples. I'll give you one that went really well and one that was a nightmare. Last project that went well, Willow Glen, 7853 Willow Glen Road, ended up selling to a celebrity client. That was sort of our strategy from the design of the home. Was a bachelor. It had a nightclub in it. Big open floor plan. We had commercial grade fog machines. Recessed LED lighting everywhere in every corner. Custom neon signs I had made here in LA by my sign maker, and we strategized on the art design. This company called Art House of Orion. They do a lot of custom art pieces for celebrities, nightclubs, a lot of pop culture references. So these sort of hills, mid-century, 60s, type homes. That style went really well. And then Vesta Home did our staging. They really tied in the art with the architecture of the house. And I believe the purchase price was 121 on that property. We put about $650,000 into construction, plus carrying cost and paying investors back. But we sold for $275 after credits and after all was said and done. So that was a success. It looks great on paper to future investors, and brought a lot more people to my door wanting to do things. So that's the ideal scenario. When things don't go the way you want them to, I'll give you an example. And this is a situation that could have been avoided. And I had worked on this with a partner who didn't necessarily do his due diligence on the property activity report, which is a big thing I'm sure we can get into later. But when you're in escrow, when you're thinking about purchasing a property, you have to know what the zoning is in that neighborhood, what the building requirements are, the city plan for that neighborhood, to make sure that what your plan is and what you had in mind is something that you can actually execute on and isn't going to balloon into a 12 or a 13-month project when you originally told your investors it was going to be 6 months. So for this project, the nightmare project I had a partner who didn't look up all the information on the property activity report, got rid of a garage area, turned it into a master bedroom, and for that particular area in San Diego, they had a restriction that basically said there's no on-street parking. So you have to provide 2 parking spaces. That was that unit in the garage. So the inspector came one day before the property was going on the MLS, furniture was in the house, artwork was up, photographers are there taking pictures of it, moving flowers around on the tables, like doing finishing touches. City inspector comes in and red tapes the property.
No.
Can't transfer title, can't rent it out. It's sitting there to this day, $3.6 million asset, waiting for city approval and allowances from the city and entitlements to let us do. This is like a 1,600 square foot house. This is not a crowning achievement of my portfolio, but that particular investor who was involved in that set them back about a year. Now, another thing, paperwork with your investors, always make sure that there are clauses that say this may go over. They're probably entitled to a little bit more money if that happens. That's what happened in this case, and luckily the investor was fine with that.
Yeah.
But you always want to preserve that relationship first, even if things aren't going the way you thought they were. So
yeah, no, definitely. And also with some of your projects, obviously there's buyers out there in LA and even in San Diego that just have so much cash to spend. They're picking up these projects with cash and they're financing with cash, and they don't need banks, or they don't need lines of credit, or they don't need other outside private investors to fund these projects. Would you say that a lot of the projects you've gotten involved with investors have been capital that they have, or have you leveraged bank money or lines of credit? What has been some of your financing sources to do?
So if you're a first time, if you're getting into development, and again, I would recommend if you're get involved in a smaller level with a partner who has experience. But when you get to the point where you're ready to sign on the dotted line yourself, be prepared to put down around 25% of the property value, and usually 2 points on the actual loan itself, the full amount including construction. There are a number of people, I'll refer, one of them, Civic Financial in Redondo Beach. They're great. I'm doing a deal with them right now. They work with people who don't have a ton of experience doing these types of projects. A lot of hard money lenders want to see 3 to 5 projects in your name as either a primary or a JV partner with the LLC on title. But Civic was able to work around some of that stuff. For instance, I have a client, never done any development on his own. I'm partnering up with him. He wanted to sign, he wanted to be start his resume as being a developer now. And we were able to use contracts that he had signed previously on other development deals he did as just a cash investor, as a JV partner, and they allowed that to be used in through their underwriting process as prior experience. So I was able to get a 90% financing for that for someone who had really never done a deal on his own yet. So always explore those options and see what's out there.
Sure.
We work directly with Civic as a.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Home loans, and they're amazing. They get stuff done that I've never seen
Unbelievable.
anyone do.
Yeah, for sure. Do you know Melissa Horchak? She's the head of the loan department at Redondo.
No.
She's great. She came from J.P. Morgan Chase. Mm-hmm. Civic hired her to kind of run their loan department. She came up with the underwriting standards, everything. And she's a great resource. She's like I said, I got a letter of approval from her yesterday. She gets back to me within like a half hour. If I'm at a property, I can literally go in my car, send her the info, and she'll send the letter to my phone. I can forward it to the agent. I can submit my offer on site if I want. Those types of sort of direct solution people. That's how you get. That's how you tie up properties in LA. You got to have that quick money.
And they close quick, like 10 days.
Yeah, for sure. I think she said like 72 hours on this deal.
Wow.
So that's like unbelievable. Okay, it looks like cash. I mean, you can essentially submit a cash offer in that way. There's no loan contingency. Once you have the pre-approval, you can, as long as the appraisal checks out, you can move forward.
Sure.
For someone that's just getting into it, do you recommend that they leverage their money with?
There's a couple. So there's this popularity that's rising with these micro funds. There's a company called Diversity Fund that's one of them. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of other competitors, but essentially the idea is, cap investments at like 20,000, starting at $3-4 grand, something like that. People who don't have enough money to do these types of deals, but you can be involved. And if you have contracts with these companies and they're proven deals, technically you're a principal in the project. You can use that as your prior experience, do 3 or 4 of those. When you're ready to leverage your own deals and you have the cash to put down, you go to somebody like Civic and they'll work with you. So it's all about what you can prove. So the more documents you have and contracts you've done with these partners that you're working on these deals with, that stuff all matters, it all counts. Underwriting will take all that into consideration.
Sure. So when you acquire a lot of these projects that you buy, do you typically buy them in your own name, or do you develop LLCs specific to the project, or do you have LLCs that manage all of the developments you buy? Like, what is your framework of how you approach that?
No, that's a good question. So I'm not an accountant, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a business manager. However, sort of the basic idea of that is obviously, if you're a sole, proprietor that's not under an LLC and you're using your social security number to do these transactions, you're limited by what you can write off, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're an LLC, all of your costs, production costs for the project, your subcontractors, the marketing, the staging, the artwork, whatever's going into the house can be deducted. Yeah. And as an individual, you're limited. I forget what it is, $15,000 a year or whatever it is. So on these deals,
nothing compared to these projects and the budgets
you're writing off so much that it's like the tax burden can get sort of out of control. So you can set up an LLC, you can do a trust. There are some states that are more attractive than others. If you can set something up in Wyoming, Delaware, even Florida, some of these other places.
Texas for multifamily.
I think so there's some caveats there. So look into that. Talk to a accountant. Talk to CPA. To answer some of those more specific questions.
For sure.
The reason why you do it through an LLC is to protect yourself, like liability.
Sure. Yeah. Liability is one of them. Tax is another one. But depending on how you're involved in the deal, like sometimes I'll come on and do design and consulting for sweat equity. because it doesn't cost me much to do that. It doesn't take all my time, and I get a nice little paycheck, when all is said and done. And it's sort of, even though it's not money, I'm still sort of putting skin in the game, and they feel comfortable with that, and they trust me, based on that relationship. So, like for one of the deals I'm doing now, I basically just have the JV agreement with the LLC that is on title. So I can use that as one of my track record pieces. If the next loan that I want to get in my name, I can show them that document. It'll count as a recent deal that I did. So and I'm also one person separated from liability, and all that stuff.
So there's this new thing that I've heard about, and you've talked about it with me outside of this podcast as well, is this new acquisition line of credit. And from my understanding, this acquisition line of credit, if you're a developer who has a resume of projects that you've completed and you've gotten successful returns from,
3 to 5 years,
and you have good credit, that you're able to apply for a line of credit that allows you to buy more projects to flip and whatnot. You want to
sure, yeah. So it works sort of like, and then again, I'm not a finance, I'm not licensed, but just from my perspective as a developer, I've met a lot of private equity people. Private equity is similar to hard money. Hard money is private cash. It's not bank regulated. But typically, these other private equity routes are going to be a much lower cash in point. So these guys are looking for like a 4%. Like if you do like a secured acquisition line, they're looking at between 2 and 4% down on the line. That goes through an underwriting process which takes approximately 90 days. Once you've been approved for that, at the end of the 90 days, they refund back that money you used to secure the line, and you have access to the company I'm working with. It's called A Commercial Lender, and they're in Colorado, run by a guy named Hunter Willis. The deal I had set up with him that I'm looking at is a 2 to 4% down, 8% interest, 5-year term, revolving line, up to $10 million. So they want a minimum of like $180,000 down, and they'll fund you $10 million.
It's insane.
It's insane. It's a crazy leverage point. And obviously this is after you have a track record with hard money. You've been doing deals for 3 or 5 years. You have over 5 projects you've done that have showed success. And basically what they'll do is once you're approved for that line, it works like cash. So you're only paying interest on what you're borrowing. You don't pay interest on the whole line. So basically within 24 hours, you'll have access to those funds at any time. So there's no underwriting. They don't go and appraise the house. If you've been approved for this line, you're an advanced developer. You know what you're doing. They're very hands off. If you need more money for your construction, you just take more money. It's not monthly draws and draw schedule and all that. It's pretty streamlined.
Do they charge you points to set it up?
Or
is it just interest that you pay on?
No, the fee is that 180 includes that.
Okay.
So that 2 to 4%, all that is included in that.
So hypothetically speaking, like with this line of credit, as long as you have the 180 or whatever the money is to put down for these acquisition lines of credit, you can trigger that. So if someone were to want to invest in a development you're involved in, and they provided the $180,000 of money, you're saying that you have the capability of getting this astronomical amount of money to be able to
so this is a good point, right? Because I talk to investors about this all the time. What I recommend doing is, before you start talking to people to partner up with and doing all this stuff, like I said, if you qualify for this type of a program, get the money first, get everything set up, have the money ready to go. Then once you approach people to partner with you, cash is king. You have that line ready to go. You have all the power, so you can negotiate a higher percentage. You're sort of in control of that deal. Unless the guy you're partnering with has the same situation, which probably doesn't, because it's sort of a newer program that these people are offering.
Yeah.
So, and the bigger banks will do it, but at a much higher leverage point, much lower point on the line amount, things like that. So private equity is cool because this is another thing I recommend. Anytime you're borrowing money, figure out how many people are between you and the source of the money. That's how you'll find out how many points you're paying, how bad you're getting, jerked around. If you're some of these brokers charge you 3 or 4 points, and the actual source of the money is only charging a point. So these guys are making a killing.
Huge disparity.
Yeah, it totally is. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I'm not one of those brokers, by the way.
Come on, don't lie.
So that, I mean, again, and this is the average person doesn't care. 20,000, they get penalized in the beginning. They're just excited to be doing a deal. I'm talking 4 years in the game. You start fine tuning some of these things. How can I improve on this? How can I pay less money down? Sort of refining your business model, and you sort of learn by evolution.
That's a good point, because the more experience you get, the less money or the less points you have to pay for that money, because you have that track record you were talking about.
Correct. So we talked about it. You started about 25-30% down. Then you bump up to like 15% after your first couple deals, then 10%, and then as low as 2 to 4.
Right.
So that's kind of how the bar is structured.
Okay, so that's actually really helpful.
One thing that I did notice is that in San Diego, you said that when you first got into it, you had like a mentor that kind of showed you.
I did, yeah. He's great.
Was that important?
It was very important. He was a good friend of mine. I owe a lot of where I am now to him. Like I said, his name's Andrew White. He has a show coming out on HGTV in June called Hot Properties San Diego. He's like a principal component on the show. He's the contractor. There's 2 agents and a contractor. He's the contractor. They shot a pilot. It did really well. He was my partner on the Willow Glen project. I learned a ton from him, and he's a great resource. Really, anytime I have a question or whatever, we can always reach out to him, and he's got so much stuff going on now. It's pretty cool to see.
Definitely, yeah. No, having mentors and advisors in real estate is, whether you're an agent, whether you're an investor, whether you're a developer, is so important, because it's a tricky field to navigate if you're new to it, and especially when you're getting involved in construction and budgets and whatnot, it's good to have extra eyes on that to make sure that things are going that way. So also on the topic of financing construction projects, have you been involved in any like crowdfunding endeavors? I know there's a lot of trends now. You see it a lot in commercial multifamily where it's like a real estate investment trust, a REIT, or other forms of things where you're only putting down a few $1,000s and contributing to some form of a slush fund to buy these acquisitions and develop them out at certain interest rates. Is that something that you would recommend to people trying to get into real estate, or what are some of the disadvantages? Or
I mean, look, if you can figure out a way to set that up where you're in control of the acquisition, you have a direct partner who's also worked in on the equity of the project, sourcing that cash for you, I would do that all day. But I would warn you, I've been approached by a lot of people who are quote unquote fundraisers, and at the end of the conversation, every time they go, okay, well, these are the costs up front we need to get the sale started. So that's when I kind of start to smell BS, and I sort of back up and go, wait a second, your job is to source the money, and you're getting 20% or whatever of what you're finding me. I'm not paying you to do your job. Do you know what I mean? So you gotta really make sure that you're not getting sucked into some scheme or some situation where the money you're putting in on the sales side is not guaranteed, or they're asking you to buy leads for them. A lot of people approach me for that type of stuff. So you want to go with somebody who, is licensed, some sort of SCC certification, Series 7, or something like that has the license to trade securities, who's out there sourcing that money for you, packaging it, selling it to investors all over the country. Whatever your program is for that to do volume, just make sure that they're licensed and that they're legally allowed to acquire that money for you. And if you go with a reputable place, you don't have to worry about that. But some of these mom and pop people who approach you for funding, I don't, it gets a little sketchy. So you just gotta, make sure you know the rules and follow the law and all that. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. Don't want to violate the law, that's for sure, especially with real estate. You're gonna be in the poorhouse or the jailhouse.
Yes.
But on that topic, like say if you had a couple of projects that you were eyeing on and you were looking for investment capital, what would be some of the resources that you'd be looking for? Say if it was a private person who had a lot of money, or if it was someone that said, hey, I have $10,000 I want to contribute to a project. What are some of the angles you have?
So LA is pretty competitive. So finding a property that's for sale and then going and trying to wrangle investors to put the offer in isn't going to work.
Yeah.
So you need to either yourself have enough cash to at least tie the property up to get into escrow, and then say, I have a property, I'm in control of it, I have the ability to close on it, this is how I want to do the investment, this is how I want to do the split, and then you sort of structure it from there. Just because you're showing proof of funds in your account doesn't mean you have to use those proof of funds to close escrow. But if you don't tie it up in escrow, then it's never yours to go shop around. And you're basically presenting properties to investors that could be gone tomorrow. And that was something early on that was sort of a frustrating thing for me because you're sort of running before you walk. You know what I mean? You gotta get the money secured first, or get the property secured first, and then do the rest.
How much money do you need to tie up these properties? Like 3%?
A
little bit more.
Well, so you have to show proof that you can close. So if you use a hard money lender and they give you a letter of approval, which you should be able to get in 24 hours if you have bank statements and what they ask you for. You typically, like for me, I'd need to show between 10 and 12% down in an account. I'd need to show 6 months of being able to service that loan. And if you're in a negotiating situation, you want to be pre-approved for slightly more. So for instance, I made an offer on a property in Beverly Hills 2 days ago. The asking price was $1.9. I offered $2.25, but I was approved to $2.45. So the agent knew I had room to move. Some people, especially when you find the 1.9s, you get people who tell their agent, okay, I can buy up to $2 million. Not realizing obviously it's going to go over. That particular property had 24 offers on it. We were top three.
It's a record, by the way.
Yeah, it's insane. We were top three. Cash buyer paid $250,000 over highest offer. They're an end user. They were emotional about it. But I'm still a backup on that property. So you never know. If you're willing to stick it out, things can kind of fall back in your lap.
Sure.
So in the residential market, they always want to put the amount you offer. So it's interesting in the investment when you want to show how much you really approve to.
Sure, absolutely. So in our point is always figure out how high you're willing to go from your equation. Once your investors are paid back, really do the real math. That's another thing. When people do the numbers on these projects, they don't take into account, the appraisals, the inspections, closing costs, title, escrow, agency fees. You have to factor all this in because you and your investors are getting paid back after that money is paid out. Mm-hmm. So you always want to figure out the true number and really take into consideration everything. The marketing. Are you doing open house parties that you're participating in funding for? Are you, doing these planned publicity events? The last house, like I said, celebrity client. We were working with, One Oak and Warwick and these different nightlife groups, getting celebrities to come through at these parties that were catered and, sponsored by Jose Cuervo and Don Julio and, really buying, we're in Hollywood, that's your buyer. So you really got to know if it's a family, if it's a bachelor, and then, how much is this going to cost me to market to that person? Those numbers all add up. It's all part of the equation. So
how do you determine, how do you get specific and determine those numbers? Is there a formula you kind of recommend, or is it?
Every project is different. Marketing costs tend to be roughly around the same. Video budget, photo budget. Luckily I came from sort of a background with that, so I'm sort of going a little overboard on some of my marketing.
Because a lot of the times agents pay for a lot of those assets as well, and the sellers just collaborate with the agents to make sure the strategy of the marketing plan is intact with what your house is catering to.
Sure.
With Willow Glen, if you watch his videos for Willow Glen, he literally threw parties at his house. He had the nightclub that had the neon light fixture on the wall and had a DJ there, and they had some pretty epic nights. I heard about it, didn't attend them, but I'm sure I'm going to be attending some of those in the near future on some of the projects that we collaborate.
Yeah, and so to give you a contrast, on this last project I submitted on, I was just sort of explaining earlier a couple days ago, our marketing plan was totally the opposite. It was Norman Rockwell's, Beverly Hills American lifestyle. It was a couple in nice clothes coming home with their groceries. Walking into this beautiful atrium style, glass, house, mid-century architect, sunken pit living room, 4-bedroom, good school district. It was a totally different approach than, a nightclub with, models and this whole thing. But woo! But, investors appreciate, a lot of developers are kind of one-trick ponies. They're like, I focus on the design. We focus 360 degrees, everything from acquisition to the build, the design, and then once it's finished, how it's marketed, and so on. So.
Sure. Well, Brand, do you have any other questions that you want to jump into?
Yeah. Just to go So for real estate agents looking to partner up with investors, what's some strategies you would give them? Like how do they start getting into the investor world?
You mean agents looking to get involved in development themselves?
Yeah, like let's say like Oliver, for example, wants to get a couple investors that he can represent them on the buy and hopefully on the back end.
Sure. So something Oliver has, and he can talk about this as well. He has access to the Compass Concierge program, which allows agents under the Compass brokerage sort of an interest-free loan situation, a small percentage of the proposed sale price that will allow you to do some cosmetic repairs. So again, maybe you have access to a property, maybe it's somebody in your family, they don't have enough money to do some simple upgrades that can make a big difference on the sales side. So Oliver, he can go to his listing appointment and tell this prospective seller, look, I can help you do some updating, I have access to some contractors, some designers, some people who can help you if you're already in this position where you need to sell, can help you upgrade your existing product and get a higher dollar amount for it. So that's a good way to initially get involved, where Oliver doesn't even have to use his own money. He's just sort of using his influence he has at Compass to be able to bring you, this cash. I think as far as agents go and the agency model, I think Compass has really put a lot of pressure on other brokerages to come up with these financing solutions for sellers. And I'm sure Oliver will tell you the guy's got like a listing appointment every other day now. So
it's pretty wild. I think I'm on track to one a week right now.
I mean,
which is insane. And with the Compass Concierge program and some of the other resources that we bring to the table, we've probably been converting at least 50% of them, whether they're immediate listings or we plan on listing them 6 months down the line because they're doing some of this cosmetic work to it.
Sure.
But for brokers that are not at Compass, there's still like other ways that you can partner with investors. A lot of these deals are not MLS deals. They're getting overly bid and competitives. It might be someone that, like Max was saying, where they don't have the cash on hand to update properties, and you do some form of creative financing or partnerships to help provide that capital for them to present a better home, or you're bringing them a solid cash offer or deal that's just a bird in hand that they want to take instead of having to go through the stresses of going on the MLS. But investors love deals that there's profit margin for them to do the work, prepare the property accordingly, and then put it back on the market to make a premium on that. So as an agent who's trying to partner with developers, it's really smart to learn about the certain markets that developers are buying in, and then trying to source deals from owners who own maybe run down or dilapidated houses in the area that haven't been on the market for a long time. Perhaps they're paid off free and clear, or someone's about to go into some form of a notice of default or foreclosure. So there's creative ways to get involved with these developer buyers. You just have to understand how developers think. They don't pay owner-occupant prices, so you have to bring them deals that are within the range of them to be able to successfully buy a property, invest into the property in construction and development, and then be able to resale with a profit that makes sense for the timeline that they're taking to work on that project.
It's sort of the pressure points for the developer,
Sure.
which is not, like you said, not an end user. It's a totally different set of worries on that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Was there anything else that you maybe want to touch up base on before wrapping it up? Shout out mom, shout out dad. Thank you, my sponsors. Drink Diet Coke.
Had a great birthday, thank you. Just look, sort of a more of a business principle, I guess. You in a market where everyone wants to get involved in real estate, it's very popular. It's sort of the most popular second career for people, when their dream doesn't work out. Oh, I'll just be a real estate agent. So you're competing against a lot of skin deep people, that are not really truly invested in it because they like it. So if you're going to get involved in real estate, do it because you like it, not just because you want to make money, because there's going to be times where it's stressful and you're trying to get a property and you keep getting outbid and it's discouraging, and you really got to love to do it. You really got to be a student of how this whole industry works and always be absorbing new information. And talking to guys like, Oliver and Brandon and looking at, all the solutions out there and, just never stop learning. Brian Adler, the developer of Beverly Park, who's a good friend of mine, he's, 78 years old, and he picks me up once or twice a week to go have lunch with him, and he asks me what's going on, what's all the new stuff. I mean, this guy's 80 years old and has made billions of dollars in real estate, and he's asking me, a novice to intermediate developer be selections, so never think that you know more. There's always something to learn, and be a student of the game.
Always be a student of the game.
Always. Different game.
There's many games.
He's a good guy.
So, Max, just how do people connect with you if they want to follow you, watch some of your videos and your projects?
Dude, if you want to check out the majority of my work, you can either go to hiremajestic.com, which is my website, or Max the Developer on Instagram. You can check out my Instagram. It's more of like a daily update, so you can see new renderings I'm working on, new projects I'm getting involved with. So I'm pretty active on there.
Where did the name Majestic Development come from?
It was actually...
Were you stoned and you were like, I want to make a majestic home?
It was actually already an existing company. I got brought on.
Oh, gotcha.
They were in business for 30 years, had a clean build record, and asked me to come on and run it for them. So there's a partner who has a license that's been running that business for 30 years, and he was doing smaller home renovation stuff, and I kind of stepped in and bulked up our credit and bulked up our finance pipeline. And
I guess one last question before we wrap it up, because you just brought into how you got involved in that capacity. Do you have any licenses to do what you do as a developer?
Sure. So that's another thing. If you're gonna be a developer and you want to do volume and you're taking on a lot of deals, you want to really protect yourself on the liability side. So some of these smaller mom and pop house flippers, they have their GC license, they have their agent's license, and they're sort of trying to save money as much as they can. The issue is, if there's a problem, homeowner warranty issues, disclosures, you want, sort of pessimistic as this sounds, you got to think about these things from a lawyer's perspective. You want to be insulated from liability. So if you're the builder and you're taking on liability, one of your workers could fall, they could get hurt. You want to do a separate GC who has his own workers' comp, their own insurance. You want an agent that has his own agent insurance, their own brokerage behind them, just so that you can shed some of that liability if something happens or doesn't go your way. I mean, that's no one wants to go BK on their second deal, so that'll protect you. And maybe you're paying out 40 or 50K more a deal, but
protected.
If you're setting these up correct, you're protected, and you're making such a big margin, and you're doing such big volume that you don't care about 50K or 60K.
Yeah, no, in the long term, you're going to be more protected, and it's going to still be financially lucrative.
100%.
But security is a big thing, especially in real estate. It's one mistake can happen, and your life is over temporarily, or you're filing Chapter 11 and going to the poorhouse for a little bit.
For 7 years.
Last thing you want to do. That's not fun.
Yeah, for sure.
If you put in an LLC, your LLC can go bankrupt, and then you're still protected.
Correct. Or I don't know how the trust works on that,
I'm not sure.
but consult an attorney. You know what I mean? Consult.
Yeah, no pun intended. Trust your attorneys.
Hopefully, you got an uncle or a cousin, somebody in your family that won't flop you. But
yeah, exactly. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening to the first podcast. Again, we're here with Max Albert. You can follow him on Instagram at Max the Developer, or go on his website hiremajestic.com. He's very majestic. He did a very phenomenal job on this podcast. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at Real Estate Millennials. Thanks.
Also, leave any feedback, what you thought, how we can improve, or who you would else like to see on this podcast. And thanks for your time.
Smash that like button.
Smash the like button.
Looking at me strange, but I don't care. Step up in this mother, just a swank in my hair. Trick, quit talking, crip walk if you down with the set. Take a bullet with some grip and take the smoke on this jet. Out of town, put it down for the father of rap. And if you happen to get cracked, trick, shut your trap. Come back, get back, that's the part of success. If you believe in the S, you be relieving your stress.